You've been performing for so long, you've started to forget who's underneath. Every day you wake up and put it on. The smile that doesn't reach your eyes, the tone that hides your anger, the silence that swallows your truth. You've become fluent in pretending. You've mastered the art of appearing fine. You've learned how to look strong even when you're breaking. And maybe you tell yourself it's survival. Maybe you call it keeping the peace. But deep down, it's fear. Fear of being too much. Fear of being misunderstood. Fear of being rejected for who you really are. So you perform. You perform for acceptance, for validation, for a sense of belonging that always slips through your hands the moment you reach for it. You laugh when you're sad. You agree when you want to scream. You shrink yourself to fit into spaces that were never meant to hold you. And every time they say, "You're such a good person," you die a little inside, because they're praising a version of you that doesn't even exist. The world claps for your act, but no one stays for the silence after the show. No one sees the exhaustion in your eyes when you finally close the door and take the mask off. You stare into the mirror and wonder, who am I when no one's watching? And that question burns, doesn't it? Because you've spent so long being what everyone needed, that you forgot what you need. You forgot what it feels like to be real, to be raw, to be unedited. You've become the character everyone admires, but the person behind it, you barely recognize them anymore. And maybe that's the cruelest part. The applause feels good, but it never feels right. It fills the room, but it empties you. You keep chasing approval like it's oxygen, but the more you breathe it in, the less alive you feel. Because deep down, you know the truth. You weren't born to perform. You were born to be, to live, to speak, to exist without a script. And one day, you're going to realize the greatest act of courage is not keeping the mask on. It's taking it off, even if it means standing alone in silence. You crave to be seen. You crave to be chosen. You crave to finally feel enough. But let's be honest. This isn't about them. It's about the hole inside you that no one ever warned you about. That ache that started the moment someone made you believe you had to earn love, to deserve it. Somewhere along the way, someone taught you that being yourself wasn't safe. That honesty pushes people away. That vulnerability makes you weak, so you learn to trade your truth for acceptance. You learn to survive by performing. But that kind of survival comes at a cost, and the bill always arrives in silence. Every compliment hits like sugar, sweet for a moment, gone the next. And so you chase the next one, and the next, until you're hooked on approval like it's a drug you can't live without. But here's the truth no one tells you. Validation doesn't heal you. It hides you. It numbs you just enough to forget you're lost. It's not love you're starving for. It's recognition from yourself. It's the safety of being seen without performing for it. It's the relief of not needing to prove you're worthy of existing. You tell yourself you just want to feel accepted. But what you really want is peace. And peace doesn't come from being liked. It comes from being known. But how can anyone truly know you when you keep showing them a version of yourself that was built to please them? This is the hunger that never ends, because it's feeding on the wrong thing. You're trying to fill an inner void with outer approval. You're trying to feel whole from pieces that don't belong to you. Every time someone praises you, it feels like sunlight. But it fades, and when the light disappears, you're back in the dark, shaking, searching, starving again. That's the cruel paradox of validation. It gives you warmth for a second, but it never gives you self-worth. Because worth can't be given. It can only be claimed. And until you turn inward, until you start feeding yourself the love you keep begging the world for, you'll keep starving, you'll keep performing, you'll keep mistaking their attention for healing. But attention isn't healing, it's distraction. And the more you seek it, the further you drift from the one person whose approval actually matters, you. Validation feels safe, doesn't it? It feels warm, like someone finally turned the lights on in a room you've been trapped in for years. You tell yourself, they see me, they accept me, and for a moment, it feels like you can breathe again. But look closer. That warmth you're clinging to, it's not love, it's control. Because the more you depend on their approval, the easier it is for them to shape you, to mold you into what they need you to be, and you comply. Because being accepted feels safer than being free. You call it connection, but it's submission. You call it belonging, but it's bondage. You've mistaken validation for comfort, when really it's the prettiest form of captivity. Every like, every compliment, every nod of approval, it becomes another bar in the cage. And you decorate that cage with pride, telling yourself, at least they love me here. But love that only exists inside a cage isn't love. It's permission. Conditional, fragile, temporary. They say they like you, but only when you agree. They admire you, but only when you don't challenge them. They love you, but only when you fit their idea of who you should be. That's not love. That's performance management. That's emotional obedience dressed as acceptance. And the scariest part? You start believing the cage is who you are. You start defending it. You start calling it home. Because freedom feels too foreign now. Because silence feels like rejection. Because standing alone feels like death. But ask yourself this. If being authentic makes people leave, did you really lose anything real? You keep trying to fit into spaces that demand your silence just so you can stay liked. But every time you silence yourself, you make it easier for the world to forget you exist. Validation has become your oxygen. You can't breathe without it. But that's not living. That's dependency. And dependency disguised as connection is the most dangerous illusion of all. Because one day, the applause will stop. And when it does, you'll realize you've built your identity on the noise. And when the noise fades, so does your sense of self. That's when you finally see it. The truth hiding behind all that comfort. The cage never protected you. It only kept you small. It only kept you quiet. It only kept you performing for people who never intended to know the real you. And once you see that, you can't unsee it. That's when the fire starts to burn. That's when the walls begin to crack. That's when comfort becomes unbearable. And freedom, no matter how terrifying, starts to call your name. There comes a moment when applause no longer sounds like love. It starts to sound like noise. Hollow, predictable, exhausting. And in that moment, you finally realize they were never clapping for you. They were clapping for the mask, the performance, the version of you that made them feel comfortable, never the one that made them think. You stand there, surrounded by the echo of their approval, and for the first time, you feel nothing. No warmth, no joy, just emptiness, because you finally see what it's been all along. A transaction, their approval in exchange for your authenticity. And suddenly, it hits you. You've spent years building a life that looks loved but feels lonely. You thought being liked would fill the void, but it only made it deeper, because every compliment built on pretense is just another brick in the wall that separates you from yourself. You tried so hard to become what everyone wanted that you forgot who you were before the world told you who to be. And now you stand at the edge of that realization, naked, trembling, but awake. This is the breaking point. The moment the act collapses, the moment the silence becomes unbearable because it's demanding your truth. You can't go back, not really. Once you see the lie, you can't unsee it. Once you taste authenticity, you can't go back to pretending. And so, you're faced with a choice. Keep performing, keep smiling, keep surviving in exchange for approval, or walk off the stage. Let the spotlight go dark. Let the clapping stop. Let the audience leave. And in that silence, meet yourself for the first time in years. At first, it will feel like death, the death of the persona you built to be accepted. But soon you'll realize it's a rebirth. Because the real you doesn't need applause to exist. The real you doesn't beg to be seen. The real you was never lost, just buried under layers of performance. And when you finally strip all that away, when you finally stop performing, something beautiful happens. You start breathing again, deeply, honestly, freely. No stage, no act, no audience. Just you, unfiltered, unapologetic, unchained. And that silence, the one you once feared, becomes peace. Because now, for the first time, you're not waiting to be chosen. You're choosing yourself. It's strange, isn't it? How silence, the very thing you used to fear, now feels like truth, like air after suffocation. For the first time, you can hear yourself think. And what you hear isn't weakness, it's strength, buried beneath years of pretending. You begin to realize that peace isn't found in being liked. It's found in being real. You've spent so long chasing applause, you forgot what it feels like to move without needing to be seen. But now, every step feels different, heavier with meaning, lighter with honesty, because you've stopped living for the echo and started living for the voice within. You are not here to be approved of. You are here to be free. You are not here to perform. You are here to be. And that realization hits like thunder, quiet but powerful enough to break everything that once bound you. You start to see how much of your life was spent earning love instead of receiving it. How much of your power was handed away in the name of being accepted. But now, you're not seeking validation. You're seeking alignment. You're no longer begging to be seen. You're learning to see yourself. And that's where freedom begins. Because when you stop needing to be chosen, you start choosing yourself. When you stop chasing approval, you start walking in purpose. And when you stop performing, you start feeling. It's not easy. The world will try to pull you back, to convince you that your silence is failure, that your detachment is arrogance, that your peace is selfish. But let them talk. Let them misunderstand. Because you finally understand something they don't. Your worth was never meant to be negotiated. You are not what they approve. You are what you allow yourself to become. And when you finally embrace that, the noise fades. The pressure dissolves. And you realize the thing you were chasing all along was never their validation. It was your own permission to exist without apology, to speak without permission, to live without fear. That's the awakening. The moment you remember who you were before the world told you who to be. And in that remembrance, you rise. You rise without fanfare, without applause, without witnesses. Because now, you don't need to be seen to be real. You've spent your whole life trying to be chosen. But the truth is, you were never meant to be chosen. You were meant to choose yourself. All this time, you've been waiting for permission. To speak, to shine, to exist without asking first. But permission was never theirs to give. was always yours to claim. You don't need their eyes to see you. You don't need their hands to lift you. You don't need their words to define you. Because the moment you stop seeking validation, you stop being controlled by it. The moment you stop performing, you stop living someone else's script. The real you, the raw, unedited, unfiltered you, doesn't need an audience to exist. You are your own witness. You are your own proof. They might not understand you. They might call you distant, cold, arrogant, different. But they said that about every soul who stopped kneeling for approval. Let them talk, let them fade. You have nothing left to prove, nothing left to perform, nothing left to beg for, because now you know. Validation is the enemy of truth. And you didn't come this far to live a lie. You came here to burn, to ignite something real, to walk away from the noise and step into your own light. This is what power feels like. Quiet but undeniable. Calm but unbreakable. It's not loud. It's not desperate. It's not performative. It's peace that stands tall. It's self-respect that doesn't flinch. It's freedom that doesn't need witnesses. So stop asking the world to clap for your existence. Stop waiting for them to approve what was already divine. You don't need their stage anymore. You are the stage. You are the light. You are the moment. The real you doesn't need an audience, because the real you has already arrived. And when you finally stand in that truth, the silence that used to scare you becomes the loudest, most beautiful sound in the world. It sounds like peace. It sounds like power. It sounds like you. The old you will fight. It will scream in your ears. It will remind you of every time you bent, every time you silenced yourself, every time you compromised your truth just to be liked. It will whisper, "Go back. It was easier before. They loved you more then." And for a moment, you might feel the pull. The weight of familiarity is intoxicating, the comfort of approval, the warmth of being understood, even if it was only by a fraction of the people around you. It feels safe. But safety built on a lie is a cage. And the old you is that cage. It will try to convince you that leaving it behind is dangerous, that stepping into authenticity is foolish, reckless, even selfish, that the world will punish you for being unapologetically yourself. Let it rage, let it howl, let it claw at your mind and whisper all its familiar fears. Because that's all it is, fear. The fear of leaving the performance, the fear of losing their applause, the fear of finally being seen without permission. And you will grieve. Grieve the years lost, the love misused, the parts of yourself you buried. Grieve the masks you wore, the smiles you faked, the words you swallowed. Yes, it will hurt. Yes, it will feel lonely. Yes, it will feel like death. But death is not the end. It is the beginning, the end of pretending, the end of being small, the end of letting the world script your life. Because from this death rises the real you, the one who's been hiding beneath layers of compromise and fear, the one who never needed anyone's permission to exist, the one who's been waiting quietly, patiently, for the moment you finally let go. The old you dies not in pain, but in liberation. Each mask you shed, each act you abandon, each compromise you reject. It is a burial of all that kept you from your own power. And in that burial, there is light. The faint glow of a self that has been waiting to be remembered, reclaimed, reborn. The old you was a survival mechanism. It kept you safe from judgment, from loneliness, from rejection. But the real you cannot be contained. The real you cannot be silenced. So let the old you fall. Let it crumble. Let it burn. And when it does, don't mourn the loss. Celebrate it, because the death of the old you is the birth of everything you were meant to become. This is it, the quiet after the storm, the moment where everything you thought defined you falls away, and what remains is something older, stronger, truer. You no longer need their applause. You no longer bend to meet expectations. You no longer shrink to fit the shapes others carve for you. You have returned, not to who you were before, but to who you always were. The world may look the same, but you see it differently. Every word, every glance, every expectation. You filter it through a lens they can't touch. A lens only you hold. No one taught you this. No one handed you this power. You earned it through grief, through fire, through the quiet courage of choosing yourself when every part of you begged to be liked. You breathe differently now. Your steps are unshakable. Your words carry weight, not for anyone else, but for yourself. Every yes is deliberate. Every no is sacred. Every silence is your own. The fear that once defined you has no authority here. The chains of performance have crumbled. The masks are burned to ash. And in that space, you finally meet the real you. Unfiltered, unedited, unapologetic. This is freedom. Not the kind the world sells, but the kind forged in truth, in courage, in fire. It is not loud. It does not beg for attention. It does not demand recognition. It simply exists, whole, powerful, undeniable. You walk through life without performing, without asking, without proving. And with each step, you reclaim something you never really lost. Your self-respect, your dignity, your peace, your power. You have returned to yourself. And now you know. You don't need anyone to choose you, to approve of you, or to understand you. Because the real you has already arrived. The real you is enough. The real you is home. And for the first time in all your life, you are seen. Not by them, not by the world, not by applause, but by the only person who ever mattered, you. You are alive. You are free. You are yours. Now it begins. Not softly, not quietly, but like a storm that refuses to apologize for its power. The real you has arrived. Not for approval, not for applause, not for recognition. You have been tempered in fire, forged in truth, polished by every loss, every betrayal, every silence you once feared. No one can touch you now. Not their opinions, not their doubts, not the weight of their expectations. Because you've claimed yourself. You've chosen yourself. And that choice is unbreakable. You stand tall, even when the world shakes. You walk forward, even when the path is lonely. You speak boldly, even when others whisper, "Stay small." You are no longer waiting, no longer seeking, no longer performing. You exist with authority. You live with courage. You love with freedom. And every time someone tries to pull you back, remind yourself, you have already left the cage behind. You have already crossed the line. You have already risen. The fire that once consumed you now fuels you. The silence that once scared you now strengthens you. You are unshakable. You are unstoppable. No audience, no validation, no permission. Just you, the real you, alive, whole, free. And from this moment on, every choice you make, every step you take, every breath you draw is a declaration. I am not lost. I am not broken. I am here. I am alive. I am unshakable. The world may not notice. The applause may never come. But it doesn't matter, because you finally know. The real you never needed it. You only needed you.